Yeah, hey everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I guess a few things weren't communicated, but recently I had left thirdweb and the talk will be is still on Web3, but yeah, we'll get started with it. I'll start sharing my screen. Um, I hope you can see my screen. Just a
Yeah, we
second.
can.
Okay, awesome. So, hey everyone, good evening, and thanks for coming to this talk. And thank you, CityJS Conference, for having me here. And today I'll be talking about Web3, what it is, what it means for developers, and how you can get started with it. And we'll go through all the details together. And you can find me on Twitter at the rate Pratham. And as mentioned before, I'm a 17-year-old high school student, and I'm currently working in the Web3 and machine learning space. So yeah, let's get started with the talk. So like, I mean, this entire presentation is about Web3 and what it means for developers. So it makes sense that we first look at what Web3 actually is. I'm sure you must have, already seen lots of guides and articles on what this is, but I'll go over a short version of what Web3 is for those who don't know what it is all about. And yeah, we'll just take a look at that. So this is a quote by Chris Dixon, who is one of the very big names in Web3 in the Web3 space. And according to this quote, it says that Web3 is the internet that is owned by the builders. So let's try to break this down and understand what it means. So let's get going. So to categorize it, we have had three versions of the internet, so to speak, three generations, if we say so. So back in 1995, we had the inception of the internet with the Netscape browser that came into the picture, and we had the very first basic websites where users could go and they could read information. So they could read magazines, they could read newspapers, they could read articles. Those sorts of things were in Web 1, when the web just got started. And after that, we had sort of like the second generation of the internet, which is termed as Web 2, where you can not only read, but you can also write information. So this is the age of the internet where social media came into play. We had big companies like Facebook, Twitter, um, Instagram, all these companies where they came up with Web 2 services, websites where you could not only read information, but you could also write information to it. You could make your own content. And yeah, Web 2 is basically the internet that we know as today. That is sort of like called Web 2. And then Web 3 is the next, generation of the internet after that, where you can not only read and write information, but you can also own a piece of the entire internet. So what does that mean? Previously in Web 2, all the power was sort of vested in the hands of these big Web 2 companies. It was all in one centralized place. Like Facebook has all the power over its users and what they can do, what they cannot do. But that's not true in Web 3. And how is that sort of power taken away from these big corporations and given to the builders and the creators who actually use the internet? We'll see how that works. And this is all powered by blockchain technology, which we'll also look in further slides. So let's continue. So I mentioned blockchain, right? Blockchain is what sort of powers Web3. And I think most people know what blockchain is, but I'll do my best to explain it for those who don't know what it is. So, in very simple terms, a blockchain is simply a database that holds all the list of transactions that have happened on a network, on a decentralized network, so to speak. So it's a database that's present on lots of different computers, and it basically lists all the transactions that have happened on the network. So that those transactions can either be of money, which is cryptocurrency in this case, and it can also be digital assets. So it can be anything like tokens, NFTs, things like that. And if you want to define blockchain more formally, it is a shared immutable ledger that facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets. So a shared immutable ledger is basically, it's a distributed database. That means it's not on one centralized source. The databases present on many different computers, and it is immutable, meaning that it cannot, like, values in that cannot be changed. Like, let's say you cannot just magically, change a transaction on the blockchain. So once something's written to a blockchain, it cannot be reversed. It stays on the blockchain. So there's like this saying that goes by something like this. It's like, uh, whatever goes on the blockchain stays on the blockchain. So that's sort of what blockchain is. And this is the core fundamental technology that powers Web3 and allows us to build decentralized applications. We'll look more into that in a further slide. So how is this done? How is this decentralization, and how is this ownership given to the actual people? So in the Web 2 world, you have this company over here, and they have a centralized server, and they run their applications through there. And they can, at any given point in time, they have the authority to do whatever it is that they like with whatever users that are using the internet. So let's say one day a platform decides to kick you off their website or something, they totally have the power to do that. But in the Web3 world, all the transactions and everything is done on the blockchain. No central organization owns the server per se, so to speak. So all the things happen on the blockchain. So it's decentralized. It's also immutable. You cannot change anything on it, and like, nobody can be just randomly kicked off a platform or something that. So Web3 uses blockchain technology, and users have wallets. So these are, think of them as your bank account, and these wallets store your cryptocurrency, and they store your digital assets, which you can use on the blockchain to make transactions and whatnot. And this allows for a whole different host of applications that we'll see. So these tokens that you hold, that the users that they can hold in their wallet, can be used for lots of different things. So you must have heard about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So non-fungible tokens are a type of token only that show your ownership of something, ownership on the blockchain. So these NFTs can be used for in-game items in games. So let's say you have a game, and in that game you get a car, or you get a new skin or something. That can be an NFT. So right now, let's say if there is a game, and you own a skin on that particular game, at any given point in time, the company can decide that that they don't want you to have the skin or whatever anymore, and they can just kick you off. In the Web3 world, if you own that as an NFT, that in-game item as an NFT in your wallet, nobody can steal it from you. So it will always be there like a collectible for you. And that ties into the point where NFTs can make perfect collectible items. So just like in real world, you have, baseball cards and Pokemon cards. In the Web3 world, you can basically have NFTs as sort of like this is like the digital equivalent of a baseball card, so to speak. And then NFTs can also represent art, which can help support artists and whatever they're doing. And the last point along with that is NFTs can be used for gated membership. So let's say if you own a particular NFT, then only you get access to like a website, or NFTs. Basically, it's like a ticket. You can use NFTs as tickets and whatnot, and you can also use it as an entry that shows your ownership in a DAO. And DAOs are very DAOs. So these are very interesting concepts where DAO stands for decentralized autonomous organization, which basically is a company that lives on a blockchain. So you do all the transactions, or everything that happens in the sort of organization happens on the blockchain. And an NFT can be used to show ownership in that particular organization, so to speak. So these are like sort of like the use cases of tokens. These show your ownership in particular organization or whatever. And that is how users have the power to own a part of the internet. Moving ahead. Now, you must have heard about NFTs being sold for millions and millions of dollars as digital art. So these NFTs have been sold for millions and millions of dollars. So yeah, that is let's move on. And like, you might be asking, why would we even want to decentralize the web? Like, what's the need for even going through this hassle? So we know that the web is broken, right? There is too much power in the hands of these corporations, and they can decide to do whatever they like. And their main business model of the Web 2 world is advertising. So they store your data and they use that data and sell it to other companies, which is how they make a profit. And this is a breach of, this is a breach of privacy. This should something that should not be happening. And this is one of the main fundamental flaws of um, the internet right now. Corporations have too much power, and all the data that they have about us is should something that should not be happening. And this is one of the main fundamental flaws of um, the internet right now. Corporations have too much power, and all the data that they have about us is something that's concerning. And other than that, centralization, because since the internet is just in one concentrated place, it's all these big corporations that have the power to do whatever they like. So this is why decentralization is very important, and this is why we're seeing the advent of all these decentralized applications built on the blockchain right now. And so that all sounds cool. You can have an internet that's more open, that's more transparent, and that's more immutable. But what does all of this even mean for developers like us? So let's go over that. So in a typical web application that we build right now, we have basically three main parts to it. We have the front end of the application, which can be any JavaScript framework like React, Vue, or Svelte. And then you have a backend server typically. So you have things like you can have a Django server or .NET server, something like that, and that connects to a database. So this is, and then the backend and the database can be stored on a platform like AWS or something like that. So this is how a typical Web 2 application would work. But now let's see how that changes in the Web3 world. So the tools for Web3 are slightly different. So the front end largely remains the same. You still have React, Vue, or Svelte, or whatever framework that you're using. And then along with that, you have a backend server. So this is a choice that you can make. Either you can have all the data on the blockchain and solely operate on the blockchain, or you can choose to have some part of it on the backend, like a centralized server, and some part of it can be on the blockchain. So that's a choice that you have to make. And other than that, I remember how I mentioned there are users which have wallets which store their cryptocurrency and their digital assets or tokens that they have. So the two most popular wallets there are right now is MetaMask and Phantom. And and other than that, we will look at the coding languages that you'll have to learn. These are new coding languages that you'll have to learn. Will either be Solidity. Solidity is for the Ethereum ecosystem and the blockchains that are on the Ethereum, that are based on the Ethereum chain. And you'll have to learn Rust for the Solana ecosystem. So these are two separate blockchains that you can develop your decentralized applications on. I won't go into detail the Ethereum ecosystem and its differences from the from the Solana ecosystem, but these are two different paths that you can take. And then other than that, you'll also have to learn JavaScript frameworks like Hardhat, Ethers.js, OpenZeppelin, Waffle, and Typechain. There are also Python counterparts for these JavaScript frameworks that you can use to deploy your smart contracts and make decentralized applications. And lastly, you will also need a node provider. This makes it easier to deploy your applications and monitor them. So something like Alchemy, Infura, or QuickNode, and even Cloudflare can be used to set up a node and use your decentralized applications. And lastly, there are also other tools which drastically simplify the process of building decentralized applications without having the need to learn the new programming languages. But so this was kind of the entire ecosystem and what differences are there. So to just recap, the front end is the same. There's only a change in the back end where you have to learn how to make something called a smart contract, and which you'll do using Solidity and a few JavaScript frameworks so that you can actually deploy it to the Ethereum blockchain or whatever blockchain that you want. Now, I mentioned something called a smart. Okay, we'll get to that in a bit. But this again, this photo again, it shows you all the things that you would need. So remember how I mentioned that there are the blockchains. So there is the Ethereum blockchain, Solana blockchain. There are all these blockchains that you can develop your apps on. And then there is Hardhat, Truffle. These are all frameworks that you can use to um, speed up your development process. And then you have file storage. So remember that file storage also has to be decentralized. So you can use things like IPFS, which stands for Interplanetary File System, where you can upload your images or whatever files to a decentralized place. So you have that for file storage, and you have other things like using your wallet, and you also have the client Ethers.js and Web3.js that you can use. So this is sort of like the Web3 stack. It's there's only a change on the backend. The front end mainly remains the same from a Web2 application. Now I remember how I mentioned about something called a smart contract. So a smart contract is essentially code that runs on the blockchain. This can be done using Solidity, as I mentioned before, on the Ethereum ecosystem, and Rust on the ecosystem. And this code, once it is deployed to the blockchain, it cannot be altered. So it is set in stone, as we put it. And this so a smart contract code allows you to make transactions between two people based on given conditions or given agreements. And so let's say like let's say we have an application where it's a fundraiser application like GoFundMe. If it reaches a certain threshold amount of funds that have been transferred to it, we can write a smart contract that says that, hey, if this particular wallet address gets like $100,000 in donation money, it has to be sent to this organization or whatever. So basically, it's a way of doing transactions between two people without having the need to do any without having the need of an intermediary. And you can also mint NFTs and other sorts of tokens using smart contracts. So you can mint NFTs, you can mint other ERC1155 tokens or ERC20 tokens, and these are various types of tokens for various purposes that you can make using these smart contracts. And as mentioned before, there is the Ethereum ecosystem, which uses Solidity. So along with Ethereum, there is Polygon, Avalanche, and Phantom. So these are blockchains that are based on Ethereum, which use the Solidity language to make smart contracts, and Solana obviously uses Rust. Now, writing Solidity can be a bit of a challenge if you've never done it before. Now, here where I'm not exaggerating it, but this total image shows you at least 50 to 60 lines of code that allow you to mint an NFT. And not everyone wants to learn Solidity, and you just want to build decentralized applications. And learning a new language can be a huge challenge. So I would just there is something that I have been working on with my team with Polygon, which is the 14th largest blockchain right now that there is. And we have built a tool that allows you to very easily mint NFTs and do other sorts of things and build decentralized applications. So I'd just like to show you that entire thing here. And our project is called Saturn. And with just these 7 or 8 lines of code, you can mint your own NFTs without the hassle of knowing Solidity or knowing another programming language, or even being acquainted to the Web3 ecosystem. So I'll give a demo of this right now. So I'll just open my text editor right now, which is VS Code. And yeah, so this is currently a project that's in the alpha stages right now. So we so this is not publicly available, but I would like to show how, in theory, this would work once we launch it. So we have the entire SDK like installed over here, and all the dependencies, everything is installed. So there are two parts to this. So what we're going to achieve is we're going to mint this logo as an NFT on the blockchain, and we'll even be able to see this show up on the blockchain, which I'll show it to you in just a second. So first thing is we have a deploy script over here that allows us to deploy an NFT on the blockchain. Deploy a smart contract on the blockchain. And using that smart contract, we can make our NFT, make our token. So in these 17 or so lines of code, we can basically run this with Node. So in the testing folder, deploy.js. So we're importing the library that I have built here, and we're using something called ethers. So this is a Web3 library that allows you to do certain things. So we're just having that here. And let's deploy the smart contract. So I can put this here. This is going to go on the Polygon test network. So it's a test blockchain network where we can just use to where we're using this to develop our application. So this is not so typically when you deploy in the real network, like the main network, you would have to pay some amount of processing fee from your wallet because you're doing some computation on the blockchain. But since we're not going to use this application in production, this is just for demo purposes. I'm putting this on a test network so that we can do all of this for free. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So this is going on the Mumbai Polygon network. So we have deployed a smart contract, and this is the smart contract address. And under the hood, this entire library is using lots of Solidity code and all that, which I showed you before. And it's basically deploying the smart contract for now. So I think we're done with that. We'll move on to the next piece of code that we'll be running. And this is actually going to mint our NFT. So we're importing a few libraries, but this is the main function here where we're basically giving a name to our token. We're giving it a description, and we're also going to be passing in the exact file that we're going to be minting. So let's run this script. And once the script is done, the NFT, non-fungible token, will be minted on the blockchain. And I'll show you where this will show up. So we'll just wait a second. So here you can see it gives us a transaction hash, which basically allows us to track our token, and this will show up on the blockchain. So I think everything is done here. Now I can open something called, this is a blockchain scanner. So this allows you to see transactions and everything that's going on to the blockchain. So remember that address that I took from there, I can put that here, and I search for it. And as you can see, we get details of our entire transaction. You can see when the transaction took place. It took place 31 seconds ago, and the smart contract has been deployed. And you can see an ERC-721 token has been made. So, yep, as you can see, it's totally working. And yeah, typically, if you were to do this without all that JavaScript, all just this library, you would have to write your own Solidity code. You would have to set up your own configuration file. You would have to make sure you deploy it correctly, and you have to do loads of other things. But with just this one library, you're able to do it in less than 30 to 40 lines of code, which is incredible. And this is all in JavaScript. You don't even have to learn a new programming language, and you can make NFTs, deploy them to the blockchain and whatnot. So yeah, that's basically it. And that's basically all I wanted to show for this presentation. I hope you got a taste of what Web3 is like, what Web3 is all about, and what are the tools you'll be using, and how everything works. And I hope you enjoyed our demo as well. And I would also like to give a shout out to my friends, Sunrit, who is at the Jana Sunrise, and my friend Mudrang, at the Mudrang Gupta on Twitter, who helped me build this, who helped me in this presentation, and who helped me with the library that I showed you. So yeah, thank you so much. And that's it for my talk.